Can you hear me?
Yep.
Still got a couple minutes, so we'll give people a little bit longer to roll in, and then we'll get started at 12. All right, and it's 12 o'clock, so I think we can get started. And this is being recorded, so anyone who's not able to attend or maybe will join us a bit later will be able to catch up once it's posted. Welcome to today's drop-in office hours. Samantha usually hosts these, but she's currently out at the moment, so I will be leading this particular session. And we are going to be going over item alerts and resource sharing notes today. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yep.
Just gonna stop my video for the time being. Okay. So if you're not familiar with item alerts, this is a feature that allows library staff to add customized alert messages to items. The item alerts will appear when a specific event takes place, such as when the item is checked in, checked out, or renewed. You may use an item alert, for example, to notify a library staff member to check for a certain number of discs when checking in and or checking out an audiobook. And we have an example here. It says, please check for 3 discs total. It gives library staff a quick way to know how many discs should be present in the audiobook and what to check for in case there might be any missing. In the case of resource sharing in particular, which we're kind of focusing on today, we recommend that you add an item alert to an item that has some level of damage associated with it, but that you have already assessed the damage and determined the item is still in good enough shape to circulate. So we have an example here where it says that the item has minor water damage on page 32. And we recommend when you leave an item alert like this, initial it and date it so that when the receiving library checks it in, they'll be able to see that a member of the owning library staff or another library staff member has checked the item and is aware of the damage, and give them a date so that they know, okay, this damage occurred long before we received it. Adding an item alert that notes existing damage on an item will provide an easy way for library staff to know that the damage was already present before they received the item through resource sharing and before their patron checked out the item. This makes sure that, when the patron returns the item, library staff know that the damage was already present. and that the patron doesn't get penalized for damage that they didn't cause. It will also allow the library staff at the borrowing library to know that the owning library is aware of the damage and has decided that it is not enough to justify weeding the item from their collection. Often that's one question is, when someone receives a damaged item, if there's no note or alert attached to it, staff may wonder, is the owning library aware of this damage, or do we need to note it? And if they're not aware of it, will they want to discard this material, or do they want us to send it back to them? It is also a good idea to set an item alert to appear upon both check-in and check-out of the item in question, and we will show you how to do that. This just makes sure that when the resource sharing staff receive the item and check it in, they'll see the message, and then whatever library staff checks out the material to the patron will be able to see that notice too. An item alert is most commonly added from the holdings editor screen, but it can also be added from the check-in, check-out, renew, capture holds, and item status screens, or from the bibliographic record in the holdings view tab. So we're going to walk through the process of adding item alerts to an item from the holdings editor. And all of this is in the dev environment, so I can make changes without ruining anyone else's materials or items in production. And I actually created a dummy item for today's presentation specifically. So we have an audiobook here that I want to add a couple of item alerts to. So I'm going to go to Edit to bring up the holdings editor. And here under miscellaneous, you see add item alerts. So I'm going to click on that button, and that brings up this little window. Now you have several options in this drop down for specific kind of parameters you want to have. Like you can set it so that the item alert only pops up when an item is checked in at its circulating library, or say when it's checked out at its owning library. Whether it's a lost copy or missing copy. But for this example, and for most item alerts like this, you should really only need to use normal checkout and normal check-in. So for this, I'm going to say there was a minor tear on page 12. And I'm going to initial it and add today's date. And then we'll click Add New. And I'm also going to add one for normal check-in. Okay, and to save these, you want to click Apply Changes. And you'll see also, you can see here this option of temporary. This will make it so that when the item alert appears and the staff member acknowledges it and clicks OK, the item alert will essentially disappear and won't show up on subsequent check-ins or checkouts. But we recommend for noting damage like this, do not make them temporary, just leave those notes on there. And we'll click Apply Changes. You also need to make sure before exiting this window, you see here it says Changes Pending, to click Apply All, Save, and Exit. If you don't click that button, then the item alerts will not be saved to the item. So now to show you what this looks like, I'm going to go ahead and copy this barcode. And we're going to check it out to a test patron. And again, this is someone I created specifically for this training, so you aren't seeing anyone's personal information. Oh, to get rid of that one. And so you get the item alert here on checkout. It says minor tear on page 12 and gives the initials and the date. We click OK, continue. And the item here is checked out just like normal. And again, that's a way so that library staff can see when they're checking out the item to the patron that the damage was already there, it's been noted, so the patron should not be charged or penalized for that specific damage. There's always the possibility that they may return it with more damage, but for that particular note, they're not at fault. And now, because I put this on both the checkout and the check-in, let's go and check in this item. And you see you get the item alert upon check-in. So we'll go ahead and click OK, continue. And that's pretty much all there is to the item alerts. I did mention that you can add them from other screens like the check-in, checkout screen. And so to do that, it follows largely the same steps. Except that what you would do is, for example, here in the check-in screen, you select the item, go to Actions, and click on Add Item Alerts. And it doesn't appear to be, it might be because I'm on Dev. But let me do, if you have existing item alerts on there, you can edit them or delete them by clicking Manage Item Alerts. And so you see here the two item alerts. And so I'm going to clear both of these out. So I'll just say delete, delete. Okay. And now that I've deleted those, let me see if add item is working again. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that's what it was, is you can go in and manage them. But it looks like if there's already existing items on there, you won't be able to, alerts on there, sorry, you won't be able to add them. So we'll just do another test alert. Just gonna here, click OK. And then let's go to item details. And you can also add them and manage them from the quick summary screen in the item details. So I'm just going to go and click on manage, and you'll see the alert here. One thing to note is if you're adding or editing item alerts from the check-in screen, checkout screen, or item status screen, you only have to click the OK button to save them. There's no apply all, save, and exit button like there is in the holdings editor. And just to show from the checkout screen, again, the steps are largely the same. I'm going to check it out again. Got the alert. Select, go to add, and you get the same screen here. So that's pretty much it for item alerts. The next topic we were going to cover, whoops, I did not mean to close that. Sorry, one moment. Scroll through those. Okay. Our resource sharing item notes. Now, these are located in the knowledge book. And I will show you if you have not seen these, and I will link to the page in the chat as well. These are printable, and we have an example here that Carteret County shared that they edited a bit to better fit their needs. But these we recommend using as well in addition to the item alerts because for one thing, it's just kind of an added precaution. Sometimes, when staff are having to check in a lot of materials or checking out, they may accidentally close an item alert window without reading it. So they may not realize that there is damage there on the item. But it's also good to have so when you're shipping materials, because you can place the slip in the item, and then when you check it out to the patron will be asked to keep the slip with the item so that the damage that's been noted is clearly there. And when you send it back to the receiving library, they'll know that the patron didn't damage it. Some examples of times when it would be good to use the resource sharing note include, say you received an item through resource sharing that is damaged, but it does not have an item alert. This might suggest that the item was damaged in transit by FedEx. So placing a damaged slip in the item, noting that the item was received damage to make sure that the patron will not be charged. You might have an instance where a patron returns a damaged item. The item does not have an item alert or a damage slip, and this suggests that the item may have been damaged by the patron. So you would want to place the damage slip in the item, noting that the item was damaged by the patron and or that the patron has been charged. Depending on your correspondence with the owning library, which we always recommend you do first, you may or may not be asked to go ahead and charge the patron, depending on the damage. And as I previously mentioned, you can also use the slip in addition to an item alert, just so you have all your bases covered. One important note for resource sharing item notes, though, is please do not tape, paper clip, or otherwise attach the damage slip directly to the item. Instead, you should place the slip inside the item, or if necessary, use a rubber band to keep it with the item. Some libraries will actually turn the slip into a sort of sleeve by folding it around the cover, and then they will attach an additional sheet of paper to the back of the slip so that you're able to kind of easily slide it off and on the cover. Because if you attach it with tape or say a paper clip or something, you're likely to cause damage to the item, particularly if you're taping it to like a mass market paperback that will almost always inevitably tear off part of the cover when you try to remove the slip. But even paper clips can puncture the cover, or like if it's a DVD, the insert. And that's pretty much what I had for you all to cover with item alerts and the resource sharing notes. This was specifically requested for us to go over just as an extra bit of information for resource sharing to try and promote better and clearer communication between libraries, especially when there are damaged items involved. And please feel free to chime in and ask any questions you might have, or if there are any other topics that you all would like to cover while we're having this meeting. These tend to be a bit more free form than webinars or trainings. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Or if anyone from NC Cardinal has anything that they would like to add to the discussion.
Basically just want to, our intention with hosting these sessions is to just kind of have a time where we can talk about some stuff that has come up in terms of, different kind of things like Will was talking about, or if there's something that you're interested in knowing about, if there's a question that has come to your mind or something that you want clarified or a problem that you faced recently, really just kind of an office hours kind of time to be able to connect with you and answer any kind of questions that you have. That's really what this whole um, uh, time is for. So feel free. See there. Let me see if I had watched the chat. Let's see. Oh, yeah, it was. Um, if there's things that you want to, questions you want to ask, things you've been curious about, things you want to know about, feel free to unmute yourself. Or if you're more comfortable just typing something in the chat, that's also, that works as well. And we're happy to field any and all kinds of questions that you may have. So, yep, that's what this is all about.
I will just say also that we did ask about these trainings in our most recent annual staff survey and just asked for, feedback on scheduling and things like that. And based on that, I think next fiscal year, so starting in July, we'll probably shift the time frame of this a little bit. Some people indicated that they would want to come to these, but they are covering the desk during somebody else's lunch break or something like that. So it becomes the noon time period ended up not being very convenient for a lot of people. So we're looking at what that schedule will look like for the next fiscal year. And so if you do have any feedback on that outside of the survey, we're open to it. So.
I have a question. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Um,
Yep.
so I'm looking on the knowledge books and I see where you guys have like examples of damage and things like that. And I greatly appreciate that. I feel like we still get a lot of material that is in really bad condition that goes out. So, I mean, without being like a complete like Nazi about this, like how do we communicate to those libraries that like we're consistently getting material that we would not circulate, like it's really, really bad shape. And I feel like that sends a message. Like this is just my 2 cents worth. I feel like if we circulate material that looks like this, it's almost an okay for our patrons to treat it like that. Any ideas?
I mean, from my perspective, it's it's challenging because there's a disconnect between where they're coming from and where you're coming from. I think that's one of the reasons why we have those resource sharing points of contact. That's meant to be somebody on that team that is able to kind of um, have a perspective or a role in kind of supervising some of that stuff. I think always doing it with graciousness and tact is important, and expressing it as concern. Saying something like, "Hey, we've gotten some things that are of questionable, condition," and it kind of what you were saying about the condition, kind of almost saying like it's okay. This is reasonable material to check out and reasonable material to return. I think pictures and stuff are helpful, and I think really in those kind of communications, tone is just really important. I think we try to encourage libraries to communicate one to one and have those conversations, especially if it's something that you're seeing on a regular basis. That being said, it's also something where if because of diplomacy or because of people not sort of getting on the same page or not understanding what you're saying, if it makes sense for us to get involved and sort of say, hey, not really sharing any names, but this came up, and we've gotten some things, and there's even ways to share pictures of the materials, for instance, without even making it where it's like easy to tell what it was and that sort of thing. But I think closing that feedback loop, that's really what it's all about. I think part of the reason that we're doing some of this stuff today and talking about some of these things is trying to get the message out there. And that's, I think why we wanted to put this out and then, make a video of it and share that with our resource sharing list, because it's something where there's always people who are changing. There's always new people who are joining the library staff, and some people don't. They need some feedback to kind of dial in some of that stuff. So we're constantly trying to get that message out there that, like, hey, this is normal. This is hopefully not normal.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that it's difficult to find a one size fits all answer for, I think, and that's kind of the reason why we had those examples of damage in the knowledge book, because different libraries are going to have different standards for what they consider damaged, and even within a single library, different staff are going to have different standards for what they think is damaged enough to weed, and what isn't. And so I think even there might be that disconnect between, like, someone from circulation pulls a book that looks really damaged, but they think, it's okay, it's still, we can still check it out. And then they send it to resource sharing, and the resource sharing person receives it and just packs it up as part of the shipment, whether they notice the damage or not, or maybe they notice the damage but figure, well, if circulation thinks this is okay to send, it must be okay to send. So really, we just try to, again, stress that communication between the libraries. And I think, like Benjamin said, if you have pictures of it, that goes a long way to helping, instead of just saying, hey, we received this item with XYZ damage, because then you can kind of let the pictures speak for themselves instead of it, the other party, mistakenly taking it like you're being accusatory or something. They can just see the evidence right there.
What other kind of things, questions, frustrations, venting? What other kinds of things come up that you have questions about? We're happy to dig into any kinds of oddball cases or things that that you've dealt with. Big picture things like policies and stuff, or specific things like how to do a specific task. Happy to get into any of that stuff. Trying to think of other things from the Cardinal side that we are worth mentioning. We've been spending a lot of our time recently chewing into the annual staff survey responses, and just kind of looking at what everybody responded there. It's really helpful to kind of have that feedback, and that really helps to inform what we end up spending our time on and how we what kind of training and stuff we're doing. So all kinds of good, juicy stuff to get into in the comments there. So that's always interesting. All right. If there's anybody else want to offer something or have any questions? If not, we can wrap up for today. I don't see anything in the chat. So thanks everybody who came, and we'll post this and share this information. Part of our goal is to have these sessions and be able to share what we get into with the larger Cardinal community. So thanks, Will, for that information today. And yeah, we will see you all next time.